A single race in the European Talent Cup this weekend as we move on to the third race of the day at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya for round 4 of the 2018 FIM CEV Repsol. For those of you who aren't familiar with the ETC, the riders are on standardised Honda NSF 250s, so perhaps it's no great surprise then in a one-make championship that the standings are incredibly close. The top 3 arrive in Catalunya, separated by just 3 points, and the top 5 separated by just 12. I'm now rejoined in commentary by Fran, who is no doubt out of breath, dashing up and down to catch the riders in Parc Fermé. I'm not too up on my German, but Jesko Ruffin sounded happy enough with his efforts there.
He was, yeah. I think it was quite an emotional win for him. Obviously, it's the first time he's been on the top step here since the tragic death of Louis Salom, who at the time, a couple of years ago, was his teammate. It really did affect him a lot when that happened. Obviously, a very sad day for the sport. But yeah, so I think it was quite emotional for him to come back to this venue and take that win. But yeah, now on to European Talent Cup. And it will be interesting with these guys. It's a long straight for these little bikes. So it should be pretty interesting into turn 1, I think, with this one.
Just in my introduction to the solitary race in the European Talent Cup here this weekend, explaining that the championship standings are very close indeed. Unpredictable, really, from one race to the next. We have completely different results, 4 different race winners in the first 4 races of the campaign. But it's also, you know, it tends to be pack racing. It tends to be the riders all fairly close together in these lower capacity machines.
Yeah, obviously, like you were saying, all on the same bike can have a big effect. And obviously, that's what's so great about sort of the entry-level championships like the I said Eurovision Talent Cup. That would be a very different race, like the European Talent Cup. But yeah, like you say, it's been fairly unpredictable so far for these guys. It seems to change much more track to track. Who manages to really get the most out of their machine and at the venue. But yeah, it should be another good one today. Like I said, that long straight should give us some fun at the end of it for these guys on the little bikes.
And that's something to emphasise really in this European Talent Cup. The riders as young as 12 years of age, they're not particularly experienced. Some of them will have done testing here at Barcelona, of course, because Barcelona is a well-used track in terms of testing. But as we go from one track to another, levels of experience on that type of circuit will vary, and that does very often shake up the order.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, some of these guys super young, and it's their real first terribly sorry. It's their real first experience of international kind of competition, and it's great for them to get to race at venues like Catalunya and you know, really get experience of the Grand Prix level circuits. But it does tend to give us a few surprises week to week.
Well, let's take a look at the riders lining up in their grid order here then. And it's going to be Matteo Patacca on pole position, our current championship leader, albeit by just a single point. A real signal of intent from him in qualifying. The first time he has made it onto the front 3 rows of the grid this season. He's been scoring good points in the races, though. And in each of those 4 previous races, he has, of course, moved forward because he's been further down the order. The winner last time out for race 2 in Valencia. And as I said, the championship leader.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly where he wanted to pick up after that first race win last time out. And the first race win as well for this Seat 58 Quadricorse. I'm sorry I don't say the 58 in Italian. But obviously that was a pretty emotional and great day for Paolo Simoncelli as well then to take that first win with this outfit. And he really does believe in these guys he's got in the ETC. He thinks they've got an awful lot of talent. And obviously for Patacca, having taken that win and then straight back out and on pole again for this one, it's going pretty well for them at the moment.
Patacca, Artigas and Salvador on the front row, so 2 Spaniards on the front row. We do see a proliferation of Spaniards competing. This is Artigas, 2nd consecutive front row grid slot. Didn't manage to make best use of it in Valencia, had a retirement from the lead, if I remember correctly, in race 1, and a 7th position finish in race 2. But he's already had 3 solid point scores, now wanting to challenge for a first podium of the campaign. Yeah,
definitely. He's a little bit further down the order. He's 7th in the standings. But yeah, it's got some good pace this weekend, so it'll be interesting what you can do and if you can keep that on in the race, obviously, as well. One of those home riders like David Salvador as well. So that's always a nice little extra. Obviously, the vast majority of this calendar is on Spanish tracks, but, you know, it's always nice to be racing at home again.
David Salvador then making his first appearance on the front 3 rows of the grid, backing up an excellent podium finish from race 2 in Valencia. We have so many riders lining up in the European Talent Cup that grid positions can be quite variable, but we do start to see things tend to settle down in the race. That's Pataka, Artigas and Salvador then on the front row. Row number 2 is going to be Parvalainen, Rueda and Hiral. So Parvalainen, there he is, the Finnish rider, took his second European Talent Cup podium last time out in Valencia, and he's now hoping to kick on from that after his best qualifying of the season so far, 4th place.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty good, you know, second row, solid effort. And like you say, after that podium last time out, again, another one of those who got another good result to keep that momentum rolling. Obviously, it's a little bit longer in between rounds in this championship, and especially with these guys not having gone to Le Mans and raced there. So it's always good to just pick up exactly where you left off on that roll, and hopefully you'll be able to convert that 4th place into another good result.
How about this very, very young man, Jose Rueda, on the number 95 machine, the 12-year-old, one of the youngest riders in the field, and he seems delighted just to be here. His best qualifying to date, has had a couple of promising race results, so he could be one to watch, you know, one of the youngest riders in the field, as I said. Yeah,
definitely. Like you can see, he's one of those that looks young as well, you know, like seems like everything's a little bit oversized for him, but a stunning performance in qualifying. And second row of the grid, job well done. But like you say, some of them so young and they're just doing so well already on this level. It's great to see that talent coming through and starting to shine in the lower categories like the ETC. It's exactly what it's designed for. Just give them some experience and let them really hone their racecraft.
Completing the second row of the grid then, the number 76, Julian Giral, the star of the opening round in Estoril, and he was actually the points leader leaving Portugal. 2 retirements in Valencia. He really has something to prove here in Barcelona, the Spaniard.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, he doesn't quite get the brolly girl of there further up for his teammate with Julian Simon holding the umbrella there, but yeah, I mean, these guys, again, is the part of that Estrella Galicia sort of, the word in Spanish is cantera, which technically means quarry, but it's that sort of school of talent, and really, yeah, they're ones to watch. They've had some great results and showing great form this weekend, obviously, at the home race, so it's really good. And then, again, you have riders from a little bit further afield. French, obviously, they've got some great representation on the world stage at the moment with Zarco, really firing up French motorcycle racing again. So Clément Rouget, really good qualifying, and hopefully he'll be wanting to get in that fight at the front a bit more.
The number 22, the former French Moto 3 champion, qualifying inside the top 25 for the first time in the European Talent Cup. So a really big opportunity for him here.
Yeah, definitely. Big step forward for him. And like I said, another few, you know, riders in Moto 3 had the same, really showed some great pace this weekend. So, and a few in the ETC the same. Just want to hold on to that, stay calm off the line and take those points for their qualifying efforts.
Here's Dirk Geiger. He'll be another rider looking to take points from his qualifying efforts. He's been struggling for consistency so far this season, yet to take his first top 10 finish. He has put in a couple of point scores and again has shown well in qualifying with 8th position.
Yeah, definitely. Another one of those that's really shone in their home country in the ADAC Northern Europe Cup. So it's great to see that. And again, 13 years old for Fermín Aldeguer. We always have this debate on the more Catalan names. But yeah, and a podium for him in Estoril. So 9th on the grid, that's pretty good. He'll be wanting to capitalise on that and again get some solid results and get a bit more consistency.
Aldeguer, 3 retirements in a row coming into this weekend. A podium finisher in the opening race of 2018 in Estoril, and he rounds out the 3rd row of the grid. So that's the top 9. How about row number 4? Another couple of Spaniards. So as I said previously, a proliferation of Spaniards in this championship. This is Carlos Torrecillas of Spain. He's made, on average, 14 positions per race from grid to checkered flag. He's been firing up through the field this season. This was his best qualifying of the campaign to take 10th position. Well, you can do the maths and say he's not going to make up 14 positions here today, but if he makes up anything like that, he'll be heading towards the top positions in this race.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, super impressive performance in today. Pretty solid qualifying, so a lot to play for Torrecillas. And like you say, another Spaniard. There's quite a few in this field. There's a really impressive spread of nationalities in most of the championships in the CV, but especially European Talent Cup. They're from far and wide, and a lot of them really competitive, really showing some great pace and form. So Inigo Iglesias, again, another one, a little bit of an older rider in the field, But another racing on home turf, and yeah, he'll want to be moving up from 11th, I imagine.
As you say, one of the older riders in the field, but this is his first season in the European Talent Cup. Still looking for his first points finish as well. He came somewhat agonisingly close, took 16th in race 2 in Estoril.
Yeah, exactly. So from that solid qualifying, he'll feel pretty well placed to try and turn that around a little bit. So and then here we have the IO Academy. So another one of those bikes under the umbrella of Aki IO, obviously great talent scout, and has had some great champions and championships. Lorenzo Fallon, he's the son of the manager of Johan Zarco, Laurent Fallon. And yeah, it's great to see, again, IO really investing in talent at all levels, and they've got a great ladder to the top now throughout. So another one to watch for the future, maybe.
Fallon, like Iglesias in front of him, yet to pick up his first points of this campaign. Double retirement in Estoril, but finished 16th in race 2 from Valencia. So another rider who's been knocking on the door of points. And remember that it is the top 15 in each race who will score points. The rest of the field, which will actually be the majority of the field with such a large entry, go home with nothing at all.
Yeah, exactly. Daniel Holgado obviously really impressed last time out in Valencia. Great result and podium. But again, another one of those needing some consistency here, but that's exactly what they're in the European Talent Cup to learn. You know, it's not necessarily at this level about winning races, winning the championship and showing you're always best of the field. It's about learning as much as you can, as early as you can, that you can take into the next step on the ladder and the next stage in your career. So Josh Watley, another one of those, 12 years old. It seems super crazy, really, when you look at them. Some of them just so young and so much talent and pace. And Josh Watley, obviously, also his riding in the British Talent Cup with some really solid results. Had a podium so far, and always in that top 5 and fighting at the front. So yeah, really, really impressive. And obviously, it's great for him to get more time on the bike, for to really improve his skills and move on in his career. Starting nice and early, and some good experience between the British Talent Cup on those tracks, and then also all of the tracks that are on the calendar for the ETC. Genuine
schools of racing as well, not just about setting individual fast laps or anything else, but we do really get some wheel-to-wheel battles throughout in this category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the likes of Josh Watley in the British Talent Cup, obviously they've also got the watchful eye of Alberto Puig, who's also the watchful eye for the junior talent team in Moto 3 here. So it's always good to have that kind of figure.
Let's take a look at the grid in full then. An interesting race in prospect. 3 of the top 6 in the championship standings well out of position on the grid after disappointing qualifying results, and several of the leaders in the sessions enjoying their best results to date. Riders lining up on the front row, Pataka, Artigas and Salvador, all within the top 10 in the series standings, but Rueda and Rouget, as we've said, have both struggled so far this season. Victor Rodriguez, 5th in the overall standings, inspired in Valencia, starts all the way down on the 6th row of the grid, the first big qualifying surprise. The Spanish showing the depth of their youth talent and their expertise on this Barcelona circuit. So many of their riders in the top positions in the starting order. Francisco Gomez, the other qualifying casualty, down in 24th, the race 1 winner in Valencia. And watch out for Adrian Fernandez on row 12, one of the more consistent riders so far this season, up in 6th in the standings, but with a lot of work to do here. So we eliminated the bottom 2 yesterday to give us a full grid of 44, and this the toughest of the day in terms of racing to try and predict, because we have a large grid and well, we're about to get underway with racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, huge grid here, and so many hearts will be broken just not quite making it into those point scoring finishes. But it's also great because, you know, even maybe if you've not been able to challenge for the win, but you've come 9th, 10th, you've done a really good job, because there's so many bikes on the grid and they're all the same and it's super competitive. So, you know, for these guys, that's still a job well done, definitely. And you can see the track is just full of them. It's almost like when some tracks after the event finishes, they close the track and you can have a ride round on your bike. It's almost like that. There's that many of them. It's an incredibly impressive field to see, and it's also an incredibly impressive noise, despite obviously they're the smallest bikes that we have racing here today. But there's just so many of them. They're just you know, like the cavalry are coming when they come around the final corner to line up on the grid.
So many of them, in fact, that they have to be blocked separately to set qualifying times, because you put 44 of these out altogether and it's not necessarily representative. I mean, look at that shot, how many wide they are making their way towards the grid. As I say, they have to be blocked separately to qualify separately in smaller groups. Yeah,
exactly. There's just so many of them, you just wouldn't be able to get a clean lap, really, with that many bikes out on the track. So, yeah, and a nice, slow warm-up lap here as well, making our way steadily round. But you can see how far they stretch, even when they're close together and even side by side, around a few corners as they make their way around to the grid.
Top three riders separated by 3 points in this category, and well, I think we're a long way away from starting to build up a picture of who the championship contenders are. Pataka and Gomez, the two leaders at the moment.
Yeah, definitely, like you say, it's super close at the top there. And yeah, Pataka is just 1 point ahead of Francisco Gomez. So it's going to be pretty interesting, I think, today. Obviously, when things are so close, the balance can tip so quickly in favour of one or the other. So see if Pataka can get a good start from pole and see if he can really capitalise on that.
Worth making a very brief mention of Barry Balthus as well, who came into this race in third position in the standings, but of course has moved categories since we last saw the European Talent Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, he won't be in this fight, but still very much up there at the moment after some impressive results. So here we are, almost ready to go racing.
So we're settling in for this European Talent Cup race. We've got the green flag at the back. We've got no rider slotted in off second position on the grids. Who's going to be the rider to take advantage as we get underway? Pataka with the whole shot. Salvador slotting straight in behind the rider who'd overtaken him, so he's dropping back through the field. That number 46, Salvador, in the middle of the pack, getting completely swallowed up as they go side by side for the race lead. But it is Pataka who holds on. Salvador, poor start from the front row.
Yeah, definitely. Pataka there got exactly what he needed there, and just a nice and clean start into turn one in the lead. Now it could be concentrating on trying to keep that lead. Already, you see, I'm a commentator's curse today. I really am. A little bit wide through there, and that's allowing Rueda to make a move, but not too much of a disaster there. Still well in the front group and nice and tidy now, getting it collected again.
Rueda from fifth on the grid and up to lead our race, ahead of Pataka in second position. Third at the moment is with the number 14, although another curse of the commentator, because Torrethias has run wide and drops down to fourth position.
Yeah, nice move there from Hirel to just move through there. Again, you see the two Estrella Galicia bikes well in this fight at the front. And Jamie Davis, a bit of early heartbreak there. And obviously with these guys only having one race this weekend, that leaves you going home a little bit frustrated. Sadly, no second chance for him today. But it looks like rider okay at least, which is obviously the main thing. So again, a few of them there just floating with track limits on the side there, getting onto that green stuff. They need to be careful of that. But almost four wide into that corner, and Pataka just keeping it nice and steady and takes back the lead.
So Mateo Pataka leads us once again. The pole sitter didn't make a bad start at all, but was overhauled by Rueda, and it's now Rueda and Hirel second and third after the number 76 found his way past Torrethias, who's relegated down to fourth position. And David Salvador, who was one of only two riders in the end starting from the front row, has managed to drop backwards down to fifth.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a Spanish armada just behind Pataka here. It looks like they won't be behind him for long. Great exit there from Rueda out the final corner, and that slipstream obviously really plays a big role down this straight for these little bikes. And now we're going to be how many wide? 4 wide, maybe 3 wide into that corner. Who's going to be last on the brakes? Nice move there. Looks like Rueda's taking it back and just nice and steady into the corner. Just held his nerve there.
Rueda last rider to blink, and he holds on to the race lead ahead of Hirel. Torrethias was almost crowded out down the straight, but we see this very often in this group battling, long straights for these 250 machines, and Pataka was the rider who just got out slipstream basically down the start-finish straight. He was first going into it, he was fourth coming out of it, and he's still under pressure actually in fourth position as Torrethias thinks about a move down the inside of Hirel, but thinks better of it and holds station in third.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit heartbreaking when you are in the lead of the race coming onto that straight, and then by the end of it you've dropped 4 or 5 positions. Obviously there's not really much you can do about it, unfortunately. You can be the latest on the brakes, but still that slipstream effect really makes a difference, can see it all getting a little bit scrappy there for a few guys going around there, cutting the curb. But if they hopefully don't gain an advantage, they should be okay, but they do need to be careful with it.
Well, I tell you what, to an extent, I would argue that Torrecillas might have gained an advantage there because he'd run so deep, he was almost certainly going to lose that third position. He took to the runoff and managed to bridge a bit of a gap to Pataka behind him. So I'm sure that the stewards will be having a look at that one as we see David Munoz just getting a bit of a return away from the gravel trap. And, well, not sure what happened there for him, but he's back up and running by the looks of things.
Yeah, hopefully be able to get that restarted. Didn't look like there was too much damage there to the machine. Obviously not to the rider, straight back up trying to get back in the race. But, yeah, I'm not sure about Torrecillas. I would tend to possibly agree with you. Seemed like he really gained a little bit there, and he doesn't seem keen to give it back. So we'll have to see what happens, and if we get any news from the stewards. There you can see Julian Simon watching on. Obviously, we saw Nico roll on the grid as well earlier with the Angel Neto team. Julian Simon the same in the ETC with that Estrella outfit. Really involved throughout the different categories, and his two riders at the moment putting on a great show in this front group. Just shuffled out there a little bit wide for Hiral.
Well, we saw Pataka go from first to fourth. We've now seen him go from fourth to first. That start-finish straight can see as many as 8 position changes all in the top 8. And it is Pataka who leads, but not by much from Rueda in second. Torrecillas has done all right in the feisty early laps to hold third position, just taking a wider line there. That'll give him the inside now for the left-hander. Rueda up ahead of him. He goes in deep again. He's looking to try and square off these turns, get a good run into the next one. Torrecillas looks like he's thinking about overtaking manoeuvres all the time. Yeah,
definitely. It looks like he's really harrying Rueda there, but not quite making a move there. It's actually Rueda that went for it, a bit of a dive up the inside almost. But it's really close racing at the front at the moment, and I'm sure it's going to shuffle again when we get down to the end of the main straight. Obviously, like we said, Pataka was the guy who gained that time around. This is the one good thing, as heartbreaking as it may be to go from first to fourth or fifth one lap, chances are next lap round he'll be the guy making the gain. So it's all about positioning, especially on the final laps of these kind of races. It's all about thinking that through and where you want to be.
There was contact going into the left-hander there. Rodriguez clashing, getting in between. Well, he was the meat in the sandwich as they went 3 abreast, and Rodriguez, we'll see where he ends up filtering through, but we saw certainly one of the bikes involved in that collision heading off the circuit altogether. And, well, it's the top 9 who were covered by just a second, but with that incident there, we might start to see a bit of a splintering effect in this race as they come down the start-finish straight once again. Less than 1/10 of a second between the top 2. Pataka leads it from Rueda. Torrecillas is in there as well. Hiral's trying to make a break, holding the inside line. Pataka. Rueda comes round, and we have a new race leader once again on the start-finish straight. It's Rueda ahead of Pataka and Hiral.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it was starting to get a little bit splintered up there, but it seems like we've still got a solid front group here. That contact obviously giving it a bit of a shake-up in the middle of that pack. But, yeah, not too much harm done for these guys, at least, who managed to avoid any consequences and weren't the guy heading over the runoff. But, oh, that's a close move from Pataka there. That's a little bit cheeky, but nicely done, and he takes the lead back.
So Pataka and Rueda going wheel to wheel. Rueda thinks about a move back down the inside. Pataka has the racing line. He hems in Rueda around the inside, and that's going to allow Torrecillas wide. Hiral holding on to position, though, for the moment. Again, Rueda thinking about a move down the inside. Pataka has been mighty strong in defence of his position through the majority of the lap. It's only the start-finish straight that he has tended to be vulnerable, but I might be about to curse that because Rueda looks as close as you like coming through, and out of turn number 9, we have a red flag situation.
Yeah, obviously Pataka saw that fairly quickly, put his hand up to let everyone know. Obviously there's something incident somewhere on track. Looks like they're just dealing with that now. Hopefully the rider involved is okay.
Is that into turn 10 where we saw the 3 riders coming together a lap before? I wonder if it might be something to do with that.
Yeah, possibly. Obviously we didn't get a really great shot of what had happened there, or yeah, enough to really see who might have been involved or if it's the same incident. But hopefully as soon as we know exactly what's happened there, we'll let you know. But these guys now all slowing down, making their way back round, and hopefully we'll be able to get it restarted and get some good news on anyone involved in that red flag incident.
As you said, we didn't see it first time around. Just out of the corner of the shot, 3 riders all going into the same point in the track. And obviously, with such a large number of riders on the track, that's something that can happen. We have seen it before in 2018, a red flag situation, albeit later on in the race.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a replay here. Obviously, it's Victor Rodriguez that was down getting treatment on the track. Things like this, obviously, red flag is the safest way to deal with it. Make sure that there's no one going to be coming around that corner and they can safely try and help the rider involved.
So that is the number 91, who I called at the time being sort of hemmed in there as they went three abreast into turn number 10, and that incident has indeed caused us to have a red flag situation. We saw the rider being lifted into the ambulance there. We do hope that everything is okay for the rider involved, because that, of course, is the first priority for these riders, rider safety. Well, we'll give you any updates we do have as soon as we have them. Tends to be a while before we get any official notifications about the status of these riders. But a red flag situation here in Barcelona, and we will get back underway with the action as soon as is reasonably possible.
Yeah, obviously, like Alex said, as soon as we know anything, we'll let you know. But at least it looked like Rodriguez was moving on the track, and hopefully we'll get some good news soon.
As we mentioned previously, we have seen a red flag situation before in 2018. It's not totally uncommon if there's an incident that can't be wrapped up in time for the riders to come back round. Of course, they have less than 2 minutes to deal with something before the riders come back round. That's the reason that the red flag has been necessitated. But what I was just about to say is it's 2/3 the race distance that we have to reach for a result to be declared. And clearly we were way away from reaching that. We were 3 laps through the race.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get a quick restart of the race, the quick restart procedure. Like in most motorcycle racing championships now. And then the grid positions will be based on the standings as of lap 3, which means that the order they cross the line in on lap 3 will be the grid for the restarted race.
So that's good news for Rueda and Rouget, who'd made up a little bit of ground. Not so good for Pataka, of course, who was the pole sitter in the initial running, but had lost out. But to be quite honest, the people who it's the best news for are the people who are outside of the top 7, because the top 7 was the group that had broken away, covered by 0.7 of a second and half a second away from the rest of the pack. And really, to be honest, the riders outside of the top 9 were all starting to drop out of contention for the lead positions in the race.
Yeah, definitely for them, this reset is fairly useful. Like you say, they just started to lose touch a little bit with that fight at the front. So getting another chance to really nail that start and get in it and hopefully get in the group and kind of get that rhythm. Obviously, it helps with the riders around you. It's much easier to find that rhythm than if you're sort of desperately pushing to try and close down that gap and you don't have slipstream. All of those things make a difference. So yeah, for those guys, they'll be hoping to manage to stay in that group this time around.
Just receiving notification that the race distance will be 7 laps. So we'd completed 3, well, so now it's going to be reduced to 7 for the restart, and that gives us a little bit of time, a little bit of margin in terms of the schedule for the day, of course, to gain back a little bit of time, because there is a delay here.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's quite often a restarted race is a shortened race. But obviously for these guys, it can get pretty crazy, the racing in this class anyway. So when you shorten that to 7 laps, it's just like a mad dash. So it should be a fairly interesting race. And obviously if you think you've got the race pace over many more laps and a longer race, then now you know you've got much less time to make that difference. So it might be a bigger group.
Well, yeah, exactly. We were talking about a group of 7. We might now be talking about a group of 30, because we saw in qualifying that there's not a huge amount to choose in terms of pace for the vast majority of these riders. 1 or 2 towards the back of the field who are still learning the ropes and not quite up to speed with championship pace. But certainly the majority of these riders are capable on their day of living with the front-running pace.
Yeah, definitely. That's why this restart, like we were saying, for a few of them will be pretty crucial. Obviously, it's not complete make or break, but yeah, it's for some guys who just maybe fluffed it a little first time around. This time, if they can really nail that and get in that fight, it should be good. And over 7 laps as well. It's I imagine it may get a little crazy out there.
Heading in to the Estrella Galicia pit boxes as we see Jose Rueda's machine, the number 95, and there he is, sat calmly in the background there. Rueda, who is well, yes, one of the youngest riders out there. He was all smiles before the race, or certainly have been all smiles during that race. He managed to hit the front.
Yeah, exactly, and now he'll be starting from pole, which is always nice. But yeah, a super big smile under the helmet you could see there. The corners of his eyes crinkling. Pretty happy with the first part of that race. Obviously now no longer counts, but an even better shot at the second one now. So yeah, definitely something to smile about for him. And Pataka as well, obviously he'll be starting third now on the restart. Still front row of the grid, that's the important thing. He'll want to do exactly what he did last time and try and get first into turn one.
And to be perfectly honest, the two riders ahead of him, if indeed that is confirmed as being the starting order as we anticipate, Rueda and Rouget, aren't really a concern for him in the context of the championship. Rouget's outside of the top 20 altogether, Rueda down in 16th. So Pataka, I know it's early days still in terms of the championship overall, particularly when the point standings are so close, but Rueda Pataka rather in a good position.
Yeah, definitely. He's the guy who's got a lot to gain from this race now. Like you said, he's at the top of the standings, and there's a few names around him who he can afford almost to give a few points to. You won't want to, of course. Every single one of them races to win. But in terms of thinking about it a little bit more calmly, he's in a good position, and a third place start is great for this race to see if he can really consolidate that lead he's got. Like you say, it's a single point, so there's a lot on the table now. But all looks pretty concentrated down in that seat 58 box there. Paolo Simoncelli in the middle, and then two riders just sat at the edge looking fairly calm and relaxed ahead of the restart.
Talking about the championship, there's not been one rider who has managed to pick up a double-figure point score at every round this season. Pataka's come closest, a 9-point score in race 1 in Valencia. But that just goes to show consistency is difficult to achieve in this European Talent Cup.
Yeah, definitely. Like we were saying, they're so young in this field, and that's one of the things they're here to learn, racecraft, and also how to ride a whole championship over the course of a season. But and Pataka, for him, it's paid off. Obviously, you say he's the closest to have come to that, and he is the man on top. So, that can make a difference. But, yeah, like I said before, Paolo Simoncelli's got an awful lot of faith in the two riders he's got in the UTC, and Pataka so far certainly is really showing that's valid, and making those points really always come his way at the moment. It's quite an impressive campaign so far for the young Italian.
One thing we haven't mentioned so far this weekend, we're British so we must, is the weather. Yesterday we had scorching conditions, we had some overnight rain, we had some spots of rain right at the start of today's proceedings. Those have kind of gone out of our mind really. We haven't had too much drama in terms of weather since, but there are dark clouds looming in certain areas of the circuit, so you never quite know with these conditions.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, yesterday was gorgeous sunshine the whole day, and really hot in the middle of the day. But today, they're not for rain, don't worry. I think they're for shade. But, yeah, the weather here this morning, like you say, started off a little bit of rain, just a few spots and nothing too bad. And nothing that really would have affected the races too much. Obviously, you need quite a lot of rain to really have an effect. But it can have a mental effect when you see those drops on the visor, when you know that it's happening. You've got to just have that faith. But so far so good today, although like you say, it's always a little bit unpredictable up here in Montmeló, and you see a few patches of cloud and you think, oh, that's fine, that's not going to hit us, and then 20 minutes later you have to run for shelter.
The city of Barcelona itself, surrounded on one side by mountains, on the other side by sea, hot weather, so convectional rainfall as well. So we do tend to get rain here in Barcelona at some point during a weekend, and perhaps we've been lucky and we've had it during the night, and that's the end of it for this weekend. Yeah,
hopefully. That's what the forecast was saying anyway. I've not updated it during our broadcast so far, but it looked like if we just have a little faith, we should be okay today with avoiding the rain. As you can see there, a few people in the sun. It's obviously warmed up a little bit, and there's some interesting ways of keeping cool there.
And if you haven't been to a CEV Repsol round before, then certainly make your way to one. There are opportunities to get in for free of charge. Yeah, a great opportunity, particularly for some of you who might be less familiar with racing, because a great standard of action that we've seen today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an event worth coming to. There you go. All okay for Victor Rodriguez. And yeah, so it's a great day really. You get so many classes, so many different styles of racing, and it's just a great spectacle, I think. And it's free, and you can come in the paddock and you can see all the teams and stuff. You maybe even be able to rub shoulders with the likes of Jack Miller, who's a super VIP today, down in the paddock earlier. Had a quick catch up with him. So, you know, it's if it's good enough for Jack Miller, it's definitely good enough for you. You should definitely pop over.
So we're about 5 minutes away from getting the first steps towards a restart, seeing official notification that pit lane will be opening at 25 minutes past the hour, so in just over 5 minutes time. And in fact, cue the graphic at the bottom of the screen. Looks like that's about to be confirmed officially for us, and then we'll be starting to build up towards the action. But as you said, Fran, great to see that the riders involved are none the worse for wear in the end.
Yeah, definitely. That's the main thing. So that's great news to have seen. And like you say, we should soon be underway again, just in 5 minutes, and it'll be open for a minute. So with a big field as well, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge to all peel out. Exactly. I believe that's another championship. But yes, exactly. It's a bit of a challenge to get all these guys out of pit lane within that 60-second window. And we've seen it before, even in the World Championship. Mugello, I believe it was. I think maybe Moto 2, Moto 3. I'm very sorry, it's not on the tip of my tongue. But there was one of these quick restart procedures, and the field just simply didn't manage to get out in time, and they had to do it again. So hopefully, with these guys, they'll all manage to peel out and line up again, and we'll get ready to go racing.
I wonder how difficult it is for these young riders who have got themselves all geared up, they're underway, they're racing, to be settled down again and have to sort of build themselves back up for racing. I wonder how many of them will be affected by this restart procedure and end up losing positions off the line that they'd held, and fairly comfortably so, in the first staging.
Yeah, exactly. This is another thing, obviously. This is all part of racing. It's all part of what these guys need to learn. That kind of, ability to reset and kind of shake off that stress and just get ready to go again and do the same procedure and just keep it out of your mind. And like I said, just reset, go again, new race, nothing from before matters. And it's interesting to see how they'll deal with that. Hopefully, especially some of the guys with a little bit more experience at the front, I imagine will now just be straight back into race mode. But yeah, it's always an interesting thing, and it's an important thing to learn. It's not quite as spectacular a part of racing, but definitely like the mental game and dealing with all these different things that can happen during a race or a race weekend plays a big role.
Massive role, and also in terms of, you know, we've been talking a lot this weekend because of the stage of the season that we're at about keeping consistency through the season, and the mental part is huge in that because, you know, if a rider starts to drift or to lose concentration, that's when the mistakes are made. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, like, the mentality of a racer is usually quite similar, but they do need a lot of different weapons in that arsenal. You know, they don't just have to be fast and then that's the end of it, like I was saying earlier, I think. But I mean, a great example of someone who's really mastered that mental game, certainly last season, was Andrea Dovizioso in MotoGP, who said, like, honestly, the biggest difference between me 2016 and me 2017 is just the mental side of it. And not enough riders put enough work into that because it can have a huge, huge effect. And obviously on his helmet he had the white horse and the dark horse to represent the balance between the irrational and the rational, when you should maybe be a little bit more reckless and a little bit more Marquez, and when you should be a little bit more Dovey and just keep it calm and, you know, bank those points and get the solid result. So, you know, obviously those guys at the absolute pinnacle of the sport, great examples for these guys, but the mental side of it can be very, very important.
And as we took an overview of the pit lane there, that's where the bigger teams have a role to play in sort of coaching the riders. We've talked plenty this weekend about experienced former riders or parents of experienced riders who know what they're talking about in terms of gearing up a rider for professional competition. And to be quite honest, a lot of these young riders, as young as 12 years old, come to these races with a very professional attitude.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the biggest things about the FIM CEV Repsol Championship. It is one of the most professional places to hone your craft when you're a younger rider. And there's so many structures as well within this paddock that have a ladder far beyond it and right to the top pinnacle in MotoGP. Obviously, there's the IO structure with the Red Bull back team, and then the IO Academy as well. So obviously they've got Fallon in here, and then they also in the Junior World Championship with the Onchu twins, then Moto 3, Moto 2, and then the ladder extends into the Red Bull KTM factory racing team. So things like that, and also the Petronas guys as well. Obviously there's a lot of rumours and questions being asked at the moment whether Petronas are going to be able to put a team on the GP grid next year or be a title sponsor for one. Their program starts in the Junior Moto 3 World Championship as well. They're investing a lot in Malaysian talent, and another one of those really building that ladder that riders can use to try and make progress in their careers and give them, you know, a safe environment to learn and not be afraid of making too many mistakes. There's not too much pressure. The pressure is just to try your best and to show what you can do. So those guys especially, they've got a replacement rider this season. I'm not even saying the right word, the second time around, this weekend in the Moto 3 Junior World Championship, because they decided, you know, actually we need you to step in at the moment. We think you've got a little bit more experience, and you know, it's time for you to step in, and then someone else can just go back to standard machinery, bit more time practicing, and then move them back up again. So it's not that sort of cutthroat attitude of if you've not performed in a few races, you know, now go home. So that's really positive. It's a really good environment for these kids to learn in. People like Aki Ayo and yeah, the Petronas outfit and the Estrella Galicia Montmeló structure, they're all really great places to learn how to race, how to get those results, and then move up.
Well, we felt the vibrations from our home straight commentary position as the riders were leaving the pit, so that's quite incredible actually. And now they're making their way round back towards the grid. Not too much to learn at this stage. They've been out on track and had a few racing laps, of course. So now it's just about working your way back to the grid and then building up for this restart.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, a bit of thunder there as they all peeled out that 60-second window. Everybody really putting the pedal to the metal to make sure they made it out. And now, yeah, we've got a quick restart. Obviously, they've just experienced the track conditions. Nothing much has changed in sort of 10 minutes. Pit lane's closed again, and we'll hopefully be racing again and have another good little battle at the front.
Looking forward to it with Matteo Patacca, the current championship leader, starting on the front row, was the original pole sitter. He will be slotting into position for a second time of asking, the winner in Valencia last time out. As I said, we've had 4 different winners in the 4 races so far. Barry Balthus in race 1 in Estoril, Julian Giral in race 2 in Estoril, Francisco Gomez currently second in the point standings, race 1 in Valencia, Matteo Patacca, the winner of race 2 in Valencia. So impossible to predict, and it wouldn't entirely surprise me if we had a 5th different winner in 5 races.
Exactly, yeah, it seems to shuffle every weekend with these guys. So I think that's great as well for morale in a lot of ways, you know, to see it so competitive. You know, you can be that guy this weekend and you can really get up there in the fight.
No doubt about that, as the riders make their way round towards the grid. And we've seen this weekend riders who haven't qualified inside the top 25 all season suddenly burst into the front 3 rows of the grid. So, yeah, no doubt about it. There's a pace parity for these riders and opportunities right the way through the field for a few surprises. Now, what surprises will we see in the sole race of the weekend in the European Talent Cup? Still 6 races to go in the 2018 season. After this one, this will be the 5th race of their season, having had doubles in Estoril and Valencia.
Yeah, obviously the other thing today for these guys is they've got 1 race, so that's 1 chance to get a result, and so far they've always had a second chance, but this weekend if they don't do it now they have to wait until next time out, so maybe a little bit of added pressure, but we'll see how they cope with it.
Personnel being dragged off the grid at the last minute as the countdown is made. We're still yellow, of course, at the back, and once we go green at the back of the grid, we'll be ready to get underway for a second time of asking. So here we go with the starting grid. Patacca, Rueda and Giral on the front row. So that's slightly different to what we remembered it being at the end of the previous lap. But those will be some of the favourites. One of the big losers out of this first start, David Salvador, who's down in 16th now, having started 3rd in the initial running.
Yeah, exactly. That's a bit painful for him. He's got a lot of space to make up this time around, and that advantage is gone. So hopefully he'll be able to get a good start and get a bit further up, back to where he'd qualified.
So we've had the formation lap, the sighting lap effectively, and now we've got the warm-up lap as the riders make their way back round towards the grid, and then we'll finally be ready to get underway. As you can see, this whole restart procedure that takes time, that's the reason that the number of laps that the race will now be run over has been shortened somewhat.
Yes, exactly. So like we were saying before, a bit of a mad dash over 7 laps for these guys now. So hopefully we'll get some good battles, hopefully some good clean battles. But 7 laps, it's a fair race distance. Obviously these guys, they are the lesser powered machines of the weekend's competition here. But 7 laps is a nice, good sprint, I think.
So heading back through the sequence of turns on towards the back straight effectively between turns 9 and 10. We've seen plenty of overtaking there in the other 2 classes that have already taken place here today. We've got race 2 in Moto 3 and Moto 2 still to come here this afternoon. Big group of riders, as we've already said, massive field. It's been thinned out ever so slightly by the dramas in the initial running. A couple that were involved in that incident, of course, and then riders who'd already gone off before we had the stoppage.
Yeah, obviously it's a bit of a heartbreaker for those guys if they can't get back in it. But now, yeah, still a huge field, like you say, so many bikes. And yeah, now all coming around to do it all again. See who can get that all-important hole shot into the first corner. And
of course, only 15 scorers at each round. So there are riders back down towards 40th position on the grid for whom 16th position would be an outstanding race, but they still wouldn't score championship points. It's all about being in those top-ranked places.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so it means a lot for these guys. Obviously, like we say, there's a lot of youngsters in this field. They're learning from the bottom up, really, and points is a very good result when you've got such a huge field.
Pataka then resuming his place on the front row of the grid. The 2 Estrella Galicia bikes alongside him, Rueda and Hiral. Then we've got Torrecillas on the number 14. Easy to identify thanks to the orange. Coming off that second row. We've had delays, we've had a stoppage, we've had a couple of installation laps and a couple of warm-up laps and a couple of race laps, and now we're ready to get underway with an outright sprint. We're down to 7 laps in the European Talent Cup. Not a good start from Julian Hiral. Torrecillas is going to move through into 3rd position on the number 14 machine. Who is going to make the break into the first turn? It's Rueda who leads the way, and where has Pataka got off the line? He's fallen. He's tumbled quite dramatically outside of the top 6.
Yeah, not really sure what happened there for our pole sitter, but Rueda's definitely the man to have capitalised on that, taking the lead here, and then Torrecillas as well, moving through from that second row, right on his tail straight away, and already a little bit of daylight there. And it looks like Para running a little bit wide through there as well. So these guys really got the jump on the field there.
And Miguel Para is quite incredible because he started 22nd in the initial running, and here he is running up in 3rd place in the restart.
Yeah, absolutely. Great start for him on the restart, and looks pretty racy already. But oh, it's getting pretty close there, almost a 2-for-1 deal. But obviously, like we said, these guys know now 7 laps, it's make or break time.
Battle for 5th, 6th and 7th positions as Pataka tries to find his way back through. He's up to P6 now and challenging Artigas, who's directly ahead of him in P5, but it's Rueda who has managed to hit the front, and we have a fairly familiar look towards the top 4 positions. The only rider to have missed out so far is Pataka as they go one behind the other down in towards the left-hander, and we'll see what Para can do diving down the inside. They're going to go 3 abreast, and Para has the racing line, and the rider who started 22nd in the initial running has hit the front. Torrecillas being liberal with the use of off-track limits, and he's been shafted up wide once again and drops out of the top 3 altogether.
Yeah, that's super aggressive from Para, but he made it work there, made that space and just got through into the lead. Incredible restart for him. And like you say, Pataka's the guy who's just lost out a little bit at the moment, but he's in that group, and obviously we're now going to come onto the straight for the first time, and we'll see it shuffle a lot at the front, I'm sure.
Para from Rueda, and Para's about to be swamped in the early stages of this straight. He might be able to get a double dip into the slipstream and get back into it and try and to capitalise on it himself. That's the length of the straight for these young riders on the lower capacity machines. Para does indeed indeed fight his way back to the front. So it didn't work out too badly that he was overhauled by Rueda, and it's Rueda who's missed out. He tries to take a normal racing line, and there's 3 riders on the inside of him, and he ends up dropping down the field.
Yeah, and then Pataka as well, obviously moving through back into second, really capitalised there in the slipstream and got the job done to move back up to challenge for the lead. But Para, yeah, played that to perfection really, just ducked back out again and took that lead back. And now Pataka is going to hit the front as well.
Pataka then coming through down the inside of the right-hander to lead the way from Para, the unexpected early race leader in this restart. Third position is with Hiral, and Rueda, who was a leader, has just bumped side by side with Torrecillas, the pair missing the racing line altogether, and they've cost one another a series of positions there, as is that Diaz who's come through and moves up into 5th place.
Yeah, definitely, that was a bit of an expensive moment there, both just losing out quite a lot. But Pataka nice and smooth at the front again, back is as you were pretty much from that first start. But and it's good as well, obviously he can take that pressure of not having had the best start and then fought his way back up there straight away. But
Hiral looking for a way through into P2, down the inside, has to back out of it, and that almost gives an opportunity for Artigas to come through for 3rd position. So all of these riders getting very racy indeed as they come into the twisty final 4th sector here in Catalonia, and we see what happens and what unfolds on the start-finish straight, because the laps, well, there's only 7 of them. We're heading towards the end of lap number 2. The front group is starting to break away just a little bit now. The top 7 starting to emerge clear of the rest of the field, but here we go, we've got a 3-way fight for 2nd position. Again, Hiral is going to try and make the move early on Paris. They've all gone down to the inside line on the straight to try and stop anyone from getting the inside advantage into turn number 1. Pataka it was who led. Pataka has already lost 1 position. Para swerving inside to out to try and block the field, and he's done so. Para leads us once again. Pataka into 2nd position. Hiral relegated down to 3rd place, and Artigas coming through.
Yeah, definitely quite dramatic down the main straight there, like you say, all staying on that right-hand side of the track. And yeah, almost on the grass for Hiral, almost, but just keeping it nice and in line. But yeah, these guys getting pretty racy. Like you say, we're already on lap 3 of 7, so there's a lot to play for already. And Pataka again, just getting back into the lead of the race and just, you know, keeping it calm and cool. Obviously wants to be in that position. But Para this time around, that restart seems to have done the world of good and really in this to fight for the win now.
Through he comes again, block pass from Miguel Para to take the lead and relegate Pataka down to 3rd position. New fastest lap of the race last time around from Pataka. He was half a second faster than anyone else around him, but he hasn't been able to show that pace on this lap because he has been held at bay, and he's currently being held at bay by Artigas, who came from nowhere from 4th position.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, we've got a few running out wide there. They've got to be careful with those track limits, but I don't think they gained anything from that too much. But again, you see Hiral just going, a bit of a dive bomb move there. And again, Para as well. It's getting pretty close at the front now. It's just one of those things, you know, you've got to ask, are you all going to finish this race, or are you going to have a little bit too much of a fight? He's just keeping a little bit calmer. Obviously, we're in short and race distance, but 3 of 7 is by no means the last lap.
3 abreast as the Estrella Galicia riders go either side of Alejandro Diaz, and they've managed to find their way through and up again another position, but up at the front 3 starting to try and pull clear. Torrecillas is the 3rd in that group. Para's been dropped a little bit, and now he's under pressure of losing places down the start-finish straight. The pale blue machine, he has been dropped. In fact, the Estrella Galicia riders going either side of him as well into 4th and 5th positions. No change for the race lead. Artigas holds on ahead of Pataka, Torrecillas in 3rd, but it's the Estrella Galicia riders who've made progress on that last lap up to 4th and 5th positions.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of shake and bake for those guys there. Really good tag team manoeuvres, but obviously that's going to change when it comes down to the victory. I'm sure there'll be a little bit less teamwork there. But Pataka's still in this group, and Torrecillas showing some good pace, but Artigas at the moment seems to have it together. Obviously, like you say, he didn't lose out down that start-finish straight. That's can be quite important.
And blocks out quite aggressively Torrecillas, and there was an opportunity there for Pataka to try and recover. Last time around, Torrecillas was the fastest of this lead quintet as they go side by side through the left-hander, but just about holding on by the looks of it. Hiral versus Rueda is all kicking off, and it might not be too long before the race-leading battle kicks off as well. 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th packed tightly together as they come off turn 9 and down the back straight. Artigas has broken ever so slightly. Torrecillas is under pressure from the slipstream from Pataka, who's going to try and slot between two and down the inside line. Torrecillas takes a wide entry and holds on to the racing line in second position.
Yeah, definitely. It's all getting pretty close, like you said now, and this group is very, very big. If these guys make a mistake, there's a lot of riders behind that can immediately capitalise on that. The Estrella Galicia is looking a little bit racier against each other now. Artigas and Torrecillas just keeping it nice and calm at the front. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the slipstream this time around and whether they all head over onto that right-hand side of the track again.
Torrecillas certainly has the pace. He was the fastest of the riders on lap number 3. It wouldn't surprise me if he's the fastest of this group on lap number 4 as well. Very fast last sector to get right tucked up behind Artigas, the race leader. They have all headed to the inside line to try and block that slipstream, and it's worked because Artigas comes swerving back across the front of Torrecillas, who's pushed off the racing line. Pataka's going to capitalise, but he's stuck on the outside for the left-hander, and Torrecillas holds on for second position.
Yeah, definitely looked pretty close there. I wondered if Pataka was going to try it on the brakes there, but not quite. And yeah, not too much shuffling there, like you say, all just trying to desperately get out of that slipstream, moving right over towards the edge of the track. But I think Torrecillas is looking pretty racy. I think he'll be looking to make a move as soon as he can for the lead of this race.
He seems to have the outright pace, but can't demonstrate it while the other riders gain from his slipstream. He's going to make a move down the inside here. Oh, he's connected with the back of Artigas, and down he goes and separated from the machine. A dramatic crash in the closing stages of this European Talent Cup race.
Yeah, obviously, bit of a big mistake there, maybe just a little bit too eager. I hope both riders are okay there, but that's an expensive mistake there from that position. Didn't quite need to be doing that yet, just a little bit more patient, but yeah, obviously he was up and okay, so hopefully the other rider is as well.
Yellow flag down at the incident where Carlos Torrecillas has bitten the gravel trap. Thankfully back up to his feet, as you said. We're going to see another look at this one. Down the inside he went, sliding, and he's just gone in too deep, and gone in so deep that he's connected with the rider directly ahead of him, and both of them are going to miss out on the major point-scoring positions now, because it's Pataka, Hiral, Rueda, and to some extent Para as well, who've gained. The top two breaking slightly away as we come on to this start-finish straight. There will be 2 laps remaining.
Yeah, it looks like Artigas maybe got away with that a little bit better. Obviously got out of that incident, and but really, really costly for Torrecillas. I think unfortunately the phrase is ambition outweighed talent a little bit there. Just a little bit too eager, too much too soon. Obviously we're in the closing stages, but there's still quite a long lap for these guys, and yeah, just overcooked it there. But Artigas now on a charge back through to hopefully recover to where he was before. I thought he was going to do the same thing there, a little bit of irony, but not quite. And meanwhile, Pataka at the front again, looking pretty calm and collected, and the Estrella Galicia bikes on the charge behind him.
Pataka, Rueda, Hiral and Para. Para in particular impressive as Rueda looks for a move down the inside of Mateo Pataka, and he's got the move done. The 95 hits the front, and Para has come through on Hiral, so one Estrella Galicia bike moving forward and the other moving backwards, as Mateo Pataka is relegated down to second position, and Jose Antonio Rueda is your new race leader, his teammate recovering that third position in the end.
Yeah, definitely. The Estrella Galicia bike's looking pretty racy. That time around, it was one of them that lost out. But I don't know, at the moment, I think it could be anyone's, really. I think Pataka, Rueda and Hiral all look pretty solid. And then Para, obviously, is pretty spectacular in this race. Obviously, really, really wants it, really putting up a good fight in that group. So have to see what drama unfolds on the last lap, I think.
I'm glad there's no betting available in our commentary booth, because I would have had my money on Torrecillas, and that would have all come to naught as Para goes down the inside line, challenging for position. He sits in third at the moment, fighting his way towards second place. Pataka is holding on. The top two have seemingly had a slight pace advantage over Para, but he's done so well, so consistently, so solidly. He's held on to position. He's defended quite forcefully at times, particularly down the start-finish straight. And Miguel Para holds on to third position at the moment, but if he does hold Hiral and Artigas back, the top two, Rueda and Pataka, might be able to break away. They come onto the start-finish straight once again with just a lap remaining. Who will have the advantage down the inside into turn number 1? It's Rueda who leads, it's Pataka in second, it's Para in third. Any of this group could lead going into turn number 1. In fact, they're 3 abreast. It's Para who's on the inside, and he's going to sweep across to block the racing line, but the biggest advantage is Julian Hiral, who comes from 4th to 1st.
Yeah, that was nicely done from Hiral there. Just kept it nice and steady, and just yeah, just the guy who outbraked them, really, didn't he? Just a nice job, nicely done. But Para, again, like you say, he looks pretty racy. He looks a little bit more aggressive than maybe the guys around him. A little bit more desperate to really get in this fight, and Oh, yeah, you see a little bit of contact there. It's all getting pretty close now on the last lap, but it's a long last lap for these guys. They need to be careful and choose their moment.
And it's Pataka who's taken advantage of that. Para connecting further down the field, and Para's now pushed out of the way, but he's pushed onto the inside line. They're going to go 3 abreast into the left-hander. Para holds the racing line. He sits third. He's got the Estrella Galicia bikes either side of him. The top 2 are breaking away. Could this now be the battle for third position on the podium? It's Pataka versus Artigas up front. Para has to back out of it as they come through the left and right-handers. Para is now defensive for 4th position because Hiral is directly behind him, and we really have a race in our hands in the closing stages here.
Yeah, definitely. All getting pretty crazy at the front now. A lot of chopping and changing, and now it looks like we might have another challenge for the lead. I don't know if that's a little bit late. No, just manages to tuck it in there. Quite nicely done there for Artigas. Obviously, he was the victim of a move similarly a few laps ago, but that's how you do it. And Pataka, though, looks like he's going to fight back as soon as he can. Straight back on his tail, and yeah. I don't know if they want to leave it to the slipstream to the line, but it might come down to that now.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Pataka lunges for the inside on Artigas, and through down the inside he comes. The winner of race 2 in Valencia is holding on in a drag race down to the line in Barcelona. And Pataka, the pole sitter, had to do it the hard way. Had 2 race starts to his pole position attempt, and at the second attempt he comes up trumps, but just a 1/10 of a second separating the top 3 over the line. Fantastic racing. Pataka is milking the crowd. He's pleased with that result, and he certainly should be. We've said all season long that it's so unpredictable in the European Talent Cup, with positions chopping and changing. We got a fall after the race, and unexpectedly, as they went for handshakes, they ended up going for pulling one another off their machines, now being helped by the marshals. But as I was saying, Pataka absolutely outstanding there to fight his way through, and he had to do it more than once because of the restart, of course. And it is Matteo Pataka who takes back-to-back wins, but we've been saying all season that it's so inconsistent as to who's going to come up and deliver the big results. 4 different winners in the first 4 races, even though it was only over 2 circuits. And the first back-to-back winner, the first win of 2 races this season, is Matteo Pataka. Javier Artigas making his way round on his lap of honour after taking 2nd position. He held the race lead. He'd gone for the move down into turn number 10. Pataka, though, managed to fight his way back through into the final turn. Coming off turn 13, went for a move from a distance back. He didn't fancy the drag race down to the line in the slipstream and tried to pull out at the last minute. He went for a block pass down the inside into turn 14 instead, and Matteo Pataka made the move stick. Comes through for the checkered flag. Pataka then wins it. Artigas in 2nd, Rueda in 3rd, Hiral and Para rounding out the top 5. Did look as though Miguel Para had a slight disadvantage in terms of pace against the riders around him, so full credit to him for staying with that top group and staying right in the mix and getting his elbows out when he needed to hold position as well. Just got beaten up in the closing stages somewhat. The top 3 breaking away as the Estrella Galicia bikes had to fight their way past Miguel Para and into 3rd and 4th position. And it's Jose Antonio Rueda who takes 3rd position in the end, behind Matteo Pataka and Javier Artigas. So good racing in the European Talent Cup, and I feel almost disappointed that it's only 1 race this weekend in Catalonia, and we'll have to wait until Motoland Aragon before we see these European Talent Cup riders again, because that was really top-class entertainment, and well, we look forward to more in the remainder of this campaign. That was their 5th race of an 11-round season, so there's still a long way to go for the number 88, Matteo Pataka, but as you can see, his team absolutely delighted with that, and well, they should be, because he was fighting right to the death of that one, and just a 7-lap sprint, so it was all pretty chaotic at times. The front group breaking away, but it took a while for them to do so. We had incidents aplenty, with the number 14, of course, going down when it looked as though Carlos Torres was the fastest rider out on track at one stage. He was a little bit too fast. He was so fast that he went straight up the back of the rider in front of him, Artigas, who ended up having to recover from 5th position, comes through for 2nd. So much spectacular action in that one, it was almost hard to keep abreast of it, but it's Pataka who wins ahead of Artigas in 2nd, Rueda in 3rd, Hiral missing out on a place on the podium by less than a second, and Para will be highly satisfied with that, because he came from absolutely nowhere. 22nd on the grid in the initial staging and manages to pick up a massive haul of points here today. And that's the unpredictability that we talked about in the build-up to that race, that we just, as Pataka embraces the race winners board. Pataka, we just didn't know which rider might have their moment, might have their day. And today, Mikel Barra was certainly among those riders as he came through for 5th position. Team photo now, #1 for 2 races in a row, Mateo Pataka, by less than 1/10 of a second in the solitary sole race of the weekend in the European Talent Cup here in Barcelona. We still have 2 races to come at this circuit, and the action has been building quite nicely, so I suspect we're going to have more great racing to come in those 2 remaining races. Mateo Pataka is directed over towards Fran, and it looks as though we're not too far away from hearing from the Italian on his thoughts at a very impressive race victory, and indeed that excellent last corner overtake to take the checkered flag. Your podium finishers: Jose Antonio Rueda 3rd, Javier Artigas in 2nd position, and your race winner, Mateo Pataka.
So an incredible race, an incredible victory here. A bit of Valentino style around the final corner there. How does it feel?
Yes, it was a very funny overtake. It was a very difficult race, but I'm very happy because I'm first in championship, and I don't know, the race was very fantastic. Also the overtake on last corner. No words.
E allora anche in italiano.
Sì, è stata una bellissima gara, anche all'ultimo il sorpasso con Xavi Artigas, è stata una bellissima gara, grazie a tutti. Sono felice anche perché sono primo in campionato, grazie a tutti.
Grazie.
Grazie.
Well, Mateo Pataka quite justifiably delighted with back-to-back race victories and the manner in which he took it as well, with that last bend overtake that Fran said, quite rightly, Valentino Rossi style for that famous overtaking manoeuvre on the final turn. Mateo Pataka then following in the footsteps of no doubt one of his idols as he takes a 2nd race victory in a row and extends his lead at the top of the championship standings. It was just a single point. It'll have been opened out slightly more than that because his nearest rivals in the series standings were well adrift. Francisco Gomez finishing outside of the points in 18th. Right, Balthus, of course, having moved categories, so he was 3rd coming into that race, and his presence in the standings really somewhat irrelevant. Hiral, his nearest rival in terms of the points and in terms of where he finished here today, but he was down in 4th position as we take a look back at some of the dramas and the excitement in the European Talent Cup race here in Barcelona. Great action in the European Talent Cup once again, with the race victory only decided on the final turn and little more than a second separating the top 5 at the checkered flag. And a drag race down to the line, but Mateo Pataka of Italy had already done the hard work with an aggressive block pass on turn 14 for the final time. The right-hander giving out onto the home straight, and Mateo Pataka from there was on his way to victory. Javier Artigas playing his part, no doubt he and Jose Antonio Rueda, who made it onto the podium alongside Pataka, will be contenders for the remainder of the championship this season. as the trophies are presented. You can see the differences in age and size, bless them, between some of the riders. And Rueda, who's had a smile on his face all weekend, is just having a look at his trophy, almost as if he can't believe it. Great work from Rueda, who gets third position. Artigas in second, his fellow countryman, and Matteo Patacca is your race winner.
Carburante gratis Repsol. En honor al vencedor vamos a escuchar el himno de Italia. Ok, gracias, complimenti para Matteo Patacca, el vencedor. Lo vamos a remojar.
So your podium trio then, Jose Antonio Rueda in third position, Javier Artigas in second position, and Matteo Patacca, your race winner, all separated by just over 1/10 of a second at the checkered flag. A customary close finish as these guys spray the bubbles after their celebrations here in Barcelona. Just a single race for the European Talent Cup this weekend in Catalonia, and those three riders will have plenty to celebrate on the journeys home. Shorter journeys, no doubt, in the case of Artigas and Rueda. And it looks as though they're all about to step onto the top step of the podium for the customary photograph with the winner and with the winner in receipt of the prize of free fuel from the championship sponsors as well. So it's Matteo Patacca who extends his championship lead with a race victory, but it was far from easy in the European Talent Cup. Two races still to come here in Barcelona. We have the Moto 2 European Championship second race here at the Barcelona circuit, and before that the Moto 3 Junior World Championship race number 2 is next up. So we'll be heading towards the halfway mark in this Moto 3 Junior World Championship, the next category out onto the circuit. And after the dramas, including a red flag and a restart in the European Talent Cup, we come out onto track with another frantic category. We saw the Moto 3 Junior World Championship. Race 1 here in Barcelona was a hive of activity throughout. It was Sergio Garcia who eventually came out on top for his second race victory of the campaign, and he will be hoping to back that up, having moved third in the standings courtesy of that race victory, with more success next time out. So after delays to that European Talent Cup race, we're going to be starting with that next action in 15 minutes. We'll be on track. Before that, we'll take a look at the confirmed results of the European Talent Cup race. Matteo Patacca, your race winner, banking the 25 championship points for a second race in succession. A block of Spaniards directly behind him. 5 of them, in fact, Artigas, Rueda, Giral, Parra and Diaz. And Lorenzo Furlan, the next of the other nationalities at the checkered flag. And to be fair, a rider in 7th or 8th position at less than 2.5 seconds behind the race winner just goes to demonstrate once again how close these classes are. Separate battle for the last of the points-paying positions. Holgado taking 14th ahead of Dugo, who collects the single point for 15th, and Paavalainen missing out in 16th position, fails to score. So finishing 6.5 seconds away from the race winner and leaving scoreless from Catalonia. Shows once again the proximity between the riders in this European Talent Cup in 2018. A good field of finishers despite a couple of incidents, including the one that of course brought out the red flag. Hope that there are no ill effects or injuries for any of the riders involved in those collisions. Certainly on the evidence of what we saw, those riders were more or less A-OK. And in the context of what that does in the series overall in the European Talent Cup, that race victory means that it's an extended lead for the rider who was already at the top of the standings. It's Matteo Patacca who banks the 25 points and now leads by 24. The other riders taking points from one another. Julian Giral and Francisco Gomez, the closest rivals of the extended championship leader. Barry Balthus, of course, not participating this weekend, drops back. Artigas with a good result and on the podium, moving up into 5th position. But a big gap now behind Patacca. Whether that will be retained in the remaining rounds, that's left to see as we see further down the order and further down the standings. Fran Patacca quite delighted with that. 2 race victories in succession, which is almost unprecedented in the European Talent Cup. Far from easy. He's extended a quite significant championship lead, as we can see.
Yeah, definitely great day for him so far. Well, no, that's it, isn't it? We're done. 1 race for these guys. So yeah, great day for him here. And a classic Catalunya 2009 overtake there in Parc Fermé. I think he was pretty much more pleased about that overtake than he was about the win almost. So yeah, great show that down to the final corner. And yeah, he's extended his lead, like you say, and yeah, he'll be feeling pretty good leaving here for the next round.
Shout out for Miguel Parra as well, who is now 21st in the championship standings. That was an excellent race from him to get himself in and among the mix in the top positions. Eventually relegated to the back of that lead group in 5th position, but still a highly creditable 11 points on the board from the sole European Talent Cup race here in Barcelona this weekend.
Yeah, so now obviously all set again for Moto 3 and a reset.
And we'll be back out onto track for the 2 final races of the day. The Moto 3 Junior World Championship and the Moto 2 European Championship next up.